From the comeback of an icon with the talent to the goal of the season contender, these are the best 15 moments of the 2023-24 season. And first up, it's the story of Leverkusen breaking the curse. Every Leverkusen fan knows this one. In 2002, the club did the reverse treble. They lost out on the league with 2 games left to Bayern Munich, lost the DFB Pokal Cup final, and days later, lost the Champions League final to Real Madrid. At that point, it seemed like the club was cursed. When Xabi Alonso arrived in 2022, not much had changed. They still hadn't won a title in that period. And even though they looked on the up in the next season, no one would have predicted what they would achieve at the end of this season. They didn't just win the league, they smashed their way to it. Leverkusen became only the 3rd team in Europe's top 5 leagues to finish a complete domestic season unbeaten, ending Bayern's dominance of 11 Bundesligas in a row. The league's Player of the Year winner was Leverkusen's Florian Wirtz. He was like magic on the ball. Crazy thing is, Wirtz wasn't just doing it for Leverkusen, he was also setting records with the national team too. Thanks to his impressive performances, Wirtz had now established himself as a regular in the German national team, and for the game against France, he made the cut. Wirtz was in the starting lineup for this one, which was also Toni Kroos's first game for Germany in over 3 years, and it only took 2 of them 6 seconds to find an instant connection. That goal didn't just stun France, it also set a world record for the fastest goal in men's international football history. Record breakers. This season was the one where ballers with talent stepped up. Wirtz fired Leverkusen to the Bundesliga title, but a couple of days back, he had a front row seat to another star doing the business. Coming into this season, Ademola Lookman wasn't exactly a name people would have had on their minds as ready to shock the world talent, but he did. Spectacularly too. Lookman was the top scorer for Nigeria in the African Cup of Nations as they made it to the final. And for his club side, Atalanta, he was on smoke too. He had 20 goal contributions leading up to the Europa League final against the unbeaten Leverkusen in Dublin. And in the biggest game of his club career to date, Lookman made history. He became the first African player to bag a brace in a European final. And he finished the game with a hat-trick. A legend already. Lookman's performance was so impressive that he became only the 17th player in football history to get a 10 out of 10 rating by L'Equipe. Sensational. Just like Stuttgart. And another surprise package shocking the world this season. At the end of the Bundesliga season, Harry Kane took home the Golden Boot Award. But the real OGs know a huge reason Kane won the Golden Boot Award was because this guy went out injured for a couple of months. Serhou Guirassy rose to the occasion this season. At Stuttgart, Guirassy couldn't stop banging the goals, and after an injury layoff that kept him out for a couple of months, Guirassy came back and picked up from where he left off. And by the end of the campaign, he'd done enough to fire Stuttgart into Europe's elite competition. With 28 goals in 28 Bundesliga matches, 2 goals in 2 DFB Pokal matches, 30 goals in 30 matches this season, he was averaging a goal per game. Can't lie, it felt good to see a guy not from the top Bundesliga clubs fighting for the top award. Guirassy and Stuttgart's story was a season to remember, but they weren't doing it from the ropes like Lyon did. Just to show you how bad the situation was, here's what the French Ligue 1 table looked like in December. Lyon was battling relegation. It was so bad that after games, the club's ultras usually held meetings with the players to let them know how bad they were playing. And it seemed it worked too. The performances got better, and by the end of the season, Lyon had turned it around. They didn't just get out of the relegation zone, they had qualified for the Europa League too. What a turnaround. Lyon did it the hard way. They had to beat Strasbourg on the final day of the season to guarantee a place in Europe. And with the score at 1-1, captain Alexandre Lacazette scored the game-winning penalty in the 96th minute to seal the win. Impressive. Lacazette's been clutch in the Lyon comeback campaign this season. Over in Spain, another forgotten balling has been pulling the strings in the top flight. Isco's story is one full of hard work and dedication. In 2022, after leaving Real Madrid, Isco switched clubs to join Sevilla, but the move never worked out for him. One season later, he was on the brink of signing for Union Berlin in Germany, but in the last minute, the deal fell off. And for a period of over 7 months, Isco was without a club, a free agent. Still, he didn't quit. He always made it a priority to keep playing at the highest level in La Liga. And once Real Betis came calling, he said yes and found his spark again. This season, Isco's been a revelation. He's picked up 19 Man of the Match awards in 28 games and was even nominated for the league's Best Player of the Competition award. What a comeback. It's always good to see a player with loads of potential finally making it to the top. Isco did, and in the toughest league in the world, the Stockport Iniesta finally went big. No doubts about it, 2023-24 was Phil Foden's season. Foden balled hard for City and stepped up in the big games too. This one was his best in terms of numbers. He hit 19 goals and 8 assists in the Premier League for City, including scoring a brace at home to seal the league win against West Ham. Phil stepped up. In the Champions League, despite City failing to defend their Champions League title, Foden still lit up the Champions League, even did it on the grand stage too. Hit a golazo at the Bernabeu. Foden is him now. A day before City's last game of the season, Foden was named as the league's Player of the Season winner, and to be honest, he deserved it. Who knows, if he balls out in the Euros with England, he just might have had a perfect shot at winning the big one at the end of the year. This season, the young ballers were on smoke. Over in Spain, one of them even got a standing ovation at the home of his biggest rivals. 2023-24, the breakout year of Lamine Yamal. Down Barca's right-hand wing, still only 16, Lamine has been balling out. He broke all kinds of records this season, becoming the youngest player to score for Barca, and the youngest player to assist for the club. And when he made his debut for Spain, Lamine also made history by becoming the youngest player to score for the national team. In March, Spain and Brazil faced off at the Bernabeu, and Lamine put on a show. He was taking on dudes twice his age, showed no fear in completing dribbles and speeding down the wing. And by the time his number came up and he was getting subbed off, Lamine received a standing ovation. Incredible! I'd bet the Bernabeu must have loved this one, just like they would have loved watching this 34-year-old's comeback story unfold right in front of their eyes. At the start of the season, when Joselu signed for Real Madrid on loan from Espanyol, he was meant to act as a backup option up front. Pretty soon, Joselu got his chance starting games in the season as they went on, but Joselu's inability to score clear-cut chances meant he was back on the bench again, until Madrid's game of the season so far when they called him back. They were facing Bayern Munich in the Champions League semi-finals, and with less than 3 minutes to play were on the verge of getting knocked out, until Joselu entered the game and the rest became history. His brace sent Madrid to the final of the Champions League, and after the game the emotions were in full flow. Just 2 years back in 2022, Joselu was a fan watching Madrid win it in Paris. And now 2 years later, he scored the goals to send them to the final. Away from the serious stuff and to perhaps the funniest moment of the season, Antony switched career roles and thought he was a Star Wars Jedi. Antony was on the bench when Real Madrid went up against Arsenal at home in the league, and with United losing 1-0, manager Ten Hag decided to bring in Antony to see if he'd be able to change the game. Now I'm guessing the instructions Ten Hag must have given him would have been strict, and maybe he took it a bit too seriously, because what the heck was this face? Has to be the most memed photo of the season. Funny how this works. While Antony was getting memed on social media, his teammate down the other flank dropped the 2.0 of an iconic goal. Manchester United were away at Everton in the league, and for Alejandro Garnacho, this was another chance to impress. See, this season, Garnacho was starting more games. The coach began to trust him, and in return, Garnacho knew he had to repay his manager's faith in him, and the best way possible was to score so crazy no one would be able to stop talking about it. So he did this. His bicycle kick was out of this world, and a straight Puskás Goal of the Year contender. Garnacho's made it no secret who his idol is. He's a big Ronaldo fan, and I'd bet he got the inspiration to score this one after watching Ronaldo hit this against Juve in 2018. Garnacho's goal set him a class above the rest. His special moment, just like it was for Virgil van Dijk after scoring the goal to give his coach the perfect send-off. Liverpool versus Chelsea in the Carabao Cup final, and for Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp, this was the perfect chance to sign off. Klopp had announced at the start of the year that he would be leaving the club, and as a result, the players were all determined to get that final trophy over the line for him, especially Van Dijk. Despite having injury problems coming into the game, Liverpool took the lead through Van Dijk, but it got ruled out for offside. And just when it looked like the game would go into penalties, as it had for the last two editions, Van Dijk stepped up in the dying seconds to ensure that the boss would leave England with at least one trophy in the bag. The goal secured the win. Liverpool won the Carabao Cup, and this was going to be Jurgen Klopp's last trophy as a Liverpool boss. A fitting send-off. Despite it not ending the way he hoped it would, Liverpool had some special moments throughout the season, and it's going to be hard to top the time Darwin Núñez sealed the epic comeback from the dead. Liverpool versus Newcastle away from home, and after just 20 minutes, the Reds looked down and out. They'd gone behind after Anthony Gordon scored, and to make matters worse, captain Virgil van Dijk had been shown a straight red card for for denying a clear goal-scoring chance. Still, they managed to hang on, survived wave after wave of Newcastle attacks, and with less than 25 minutes to play, Liverpool brought on their captain Chaos Darwin Núñez. Once he warmed up, he fired the Reds to one of the greatest comebacks in the club's history. 2 late goals to turn the around off the bench. With 10 men, what a result! Newcastle fans would have seen this one as a painful blip in the season, especially after producing a European night for the ages weeks later. To understand this one, I've got to take you back a bit. In 2022-23, Newcastle finished 4th in the league and secured Champions League football for the first time in over 21 years. The group they were drawn in for the comeback, though, was insane. Borussia Dortmund, AC Milan and PSG. As the match days went on, Newcastle came into match day 3 knowing they needed to produce a result against one of the big boys if they were gonna stand a chance. So just before they went out for kickoff, coach Eddie Howe had all members on the team subscribe to Mr. Football by hitting that button down below real quick, and the results was an unbelievable scoreline. They thumped PSG 4-1. The result meant more to football fans watching worldwide. Despite PSG starting a team with a net worth of over $400 million, Newcastle still dug in to produce a result. Fairy tale stuff. Honestly, in my mind, this would have been the game of the season until a couple of weeks back when Chelsea and Manchester played out a thrilling epic. I don't think anyone would have expected the result at Stamford Bridge when these two met, because in the previous games, Chelsea versus United in the league was always a low-scoring fixture. Against the odds though, Chelsea came out firing on this one and took the early lead through Conor Gallagher. And 19 minutes later, Cole Palmer made it 2-0, but thanks to Bruno Fernandes and an Alejandro Garnacho brace in the 90th minute, United was 3-2 up. Still, they fumbled the lead. In the 100th minute, Palmer scored a pen to make it 3-3, and that should have been the end. But there was time for one final attack, and from the corner that came in and got cleared out, it looked like it would be the end until this happened. Palmer scored in the 101st minute to seal a 4-3 win for Chelsea. Incredible. Palmer came clutch for Chelsea. Icy cold, but in November over at Liverpool, the Premier League was feeling the heat. Liverpool's left-wing star Luis Diaz had his name in the headlines for the wrong reasons. His dad, Luis Manuel Diaz Jimenez, had been captured in his native Colombia and held hostage, and the national police began a search for him. All through that period, Diaz wasn't himself. It was clear the news of his dad's kidnapping had affected him, but as luck would have it, his dad was rescued 12 days after. And ever since, Diaz Sr. has always been in the stands cheering his son on. Beautiful stuff. One of the most emotional moments of the season, but the top pick has to be Sebastian Haller conquering the odds to win big. In 2022, Haller signed for Borussia Dortmund, but just 2 weeks after joining his new club, Haller soon found out that he won't be able to play for them anytime soon. He'd been diagnosed with testicular cancer, and his process of getting back in shape and getting his life on track would keep him out of football for over a year. Still, against the odds, Haller made it back just in time for the African Cup of Nations finals, and in the final against Côte d'Ivoire came Haller's big moment. With the scores at 1-1, the game was crying out for a winner, and Haller was determined to make this one his own. A cross came into the box, and before the Nigerian defense could react, Haller stuck out a boot and etched his name into Ivorian fairy tale. To come back like that, beat cancer, and score the final goal in this final is amazing. Truth is, Haller was part of an Ivory Coast team that made history. The 2024 African Cup of Nations was being played in Côte d'Ivoire, Ivorian turf. Being the hosts, there was a lot of pressure on the home team to do well, impress and go all the way, but by match day 2 they looked washed. They lost to DR Congo, and it looked at this point that any dreams they had of winning the competition would have ended by now. But still, there was hope for them. They made it out of the group stages as one of the 2 best third-place teams, and that was the start of their miracle journey. They beat Senegal in the round of 16, beat Mali in the quarterfinals, beat DR Congo in the semis, and the final, won it 2-1 to seal a third AFCON title and the first since 2015. Historic. Back to club football now, and over in England's second division, Ed Sheeran's boys were back in the big time. The last time Ipswich Town played in the Premier League leading up to this season was in 2002, and after that the club went on a steady decline. In 2018-19 they dropped down to England's third tier, and then it looked like the thought of promotion back to the Premier League would be a miracle. But with the majority owner Ed Sheeran ready to invest in the club, the miracle return was on. In 2022-23 they achieved promotion back to the Championship, and this season under Kieran McKenna, the good form got even better. Ipswich finished second in the Championship last season, which was enough to guarantee them automatic promotion back to the Premier League. They waited 22 years for this, but now it's finally happened. Ipswich Town is back in the big time, against the odds too. No one would have been able to predict this one happening at the start of the season, but here's one thing anyone watching the game would have easily seen coming. This season would be the one that huge transfer saga finally ended. Kylian Mbappe finally announced that he was going to leave PSG. To be honest, everyone kind of knew he was going to leave at some point, but no one knew when. At the start of the season, Mbappe fell out with the club, and it was so bad that they wanted to sell him and didn't even let him play. But on his part, Mbappe had always maintained that he'd tell the world when he wanted to leave, when he felt it was the right time. And heading into the final home game of the season, Mbappe made the announcement. He's leaving PSG at the end of the season. You've got a feel for the guy. He's been carrying the team for years now, and they still haven't won the big one, the Champions League. Speaking of the Champions League, this season provided us with one of the most memorable moments in the competition. Lazio versus Atletico Madrid in the group stages, and in the dying minutes of the game, Lazio was losing 1-0 at home. With seconds left to play, they were ready to throw everything at it, including getting Provedel up for the set piece. Now, Atleti's defense was pretty solid all game, so once the ball went out the first time, it looked like the chance had gone, and they'd have done just enough to seal the win, until Lazio swung it back into the box again, and you'd never believe what happened next. Lazio's goalie, Provedel, scored a last-minute equalizer to give Lazio a point. Amazing! Even Provedel himself couldn't believe it. It was like he was like a dream come true. Fairy tale stuff, just like the guys at Saarbrücken, who made their own history. When the draws were made for the DFB Pokal this season, Saarbrücken was a team no one expected to even make it past the first round. The complete underdogs. Still, they believed in the strength of the team as a unit, and because of that, became stronger as the competition progressed. They knocked out FC Karl Russia in the first round, but their reward for this win was a second-round match against Bayern Munich. Ouch. The journey should have ended there. Should have. They beat Bayern 2-1. After that, they beat Eintracht Frankfurt and Borussia Mönchengladbach in the round of 16 and quarter-final stage, eventually losing out in the semis, but that historical cup run still lives on. What a performance. Saarbrücken proved that the underdog story still exists in football. Honestly, in my mind, they would have been the underdog story of the season had it not been for these guys. At the start of the season, no one expected Girona to be challenging for a league spot. Still, they held their own in a competition with teams like Real Madrid and Barcelona, and it was against the Catalan giants that they made their mark. At home in the league, they played host to Barca, and the scoreline after 90 minutes sent shockwaves around the world. 4-2. These guys didn't come to play. Ultimately, Girona couldn't mount their title charge, but they did manage to put up a fight for the top four. And in one of their results of the season, they came up against Barca again, and this time they showed the result from the first match was no fluke. 4-2 again. Girona was the obvious surprise package of La Liga, and maybe in the top European league too. Certainly not the Champions League though. The sleeping giants from Westfalen rose again. Dortmund's story to the Champions League final is incredible. In a group with PSG, Newcastle and AC Milan, they just managed to make it out of the group in second place. And in the round of 16, most teams wanted to face Dortmund because they felt they'd be the easy pass. Dortmund got drawn against PSV Eindhoven in the round of 16, beat them to make it to the quarterfinals, faced Atletico Madrid, and there, after losing the first leg 2-1, it looked like they'd be out. They pulled a comeback to win 4-2, and in the semis against PSG, this one was the one people thought they'd definitely get knocked out of. Somehow though, they beat PSG home and away to set up a final against Real Madrid. See guys, the game in Wembley will be special to Dortmund fans for a couple of reasons. It'll be their first final since 2013, the same venue they lost against Bayern, but more so, it'll be the last time they see this legend in action wearing that yellow and black jersey. All-time club legend hero, that iconic FIFA 17 cover too. At Borussia Dortmund, Marco Reus became a GOAT. While many superstars that came to the club left, players like Sancho, Haaland, Götze, Lewandowski and Bellingham, Reus chose to stay, and after 11 years he finally announced that he'd be leaving the club on a free transfer, and it's fitting that his last game at the club could see him go out with a trophy. The Dortmund fans weren't prepared to wait that long to give Reus his fitting farewell. In his last game at Signal Iduna Park, the Yellow Wall had one final goodbye for their superstar. Deep the fact that Reus scored a free kick in the same game too, and it's safe to say he went out like a legend. Reus's career might have not been all that if he had agreed a move to join Barca in 2012 under Pepe. In Pepe's super team at Barca, he made some signings that hit and some missed. Click the next video to find out where all of Pepe's 17 signings are now.